ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to FOL Marketplace on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In today's edition of FOL Marketplace, we're going to be looking at the budget. What's in the 2023 draft national budget? The budget hearing process is almost complete. It has passed in the House. It probably is still ongoing in the Senate. So we're going to look at the national budget, what's in it, and we can touch a little bit on the budget hearing process. What is it supposed to unearth? What are the things that we're supposed to be looking at, or our lawmakers should be looking at when it comes to the budget hearing process? With me to do this, I have my co-host, who is also a member of the FOL Marketplace team, Mr. Gabriel Tabuto Carter. Mr. Carter, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. We have joining us also is he's been following the marketplace for a very long time now, Mr. Emmanuel Jackson. Mr. Jackson, welcome to Marketplace.
Good to be here.
We are also joined by Mr. Ahmed Sharif from Monrovia. Mr. Ahmed is coming on the Marketplace team, also has our economic analyst. Mr. Sharif, welcome to FOL Marketplace. You can unmute yourself, please.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I should mention that you can see he's from Cape Mount, like Senator Barney Sherman, and the beard there kind of make them look alike. So,
Manjai ko.
Kasuri kama.
Mumeniyo.
Okay.
Let me welcome for the first time Mr. Wallace Powell. Mr. Powell, welcome to FOL Marketplace, and you will have time to introduce yourself.
Well, as I said before, I'm not making excuses, but this is indeed my first time coming on a podcast. And so from the technological perspective, I may make a few blunders, but as far as the subject matter is concerned, I'm well current with that, and I'm glad to be among stalwarts like you.
Thank you. Also joining us on the phone is Mr. Yangwe Zeze, who is joining us from Monrovia. Mr. Zeze is also the chairman of the Liberian People's Party. He's been working and writing a lot on the budget, on the debt, on everything, especially the financial side of it. Mr. Zeze, welcome to Focus on Liberia FOL Marketplace.
Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. We're going to talk about the budget, what's in the budget. And I have people here that know about the budget. They know about finance, business, and economics. And we lost Mr. Zizzy, but he's going to be back. So Gabriel, let me send it to you to just touch on briefly an overview of what we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah. All right. No, I think before we came on the show, we talked about it a little bit. We want to look at the revenue, pretty much how the government, how much the government brings in every year. The revenue sources. We want to look at that. We also want to look at the expense part of it, right? So when we bring in the money, where do we spend that money? What kind of item do we prioritize? Because as you guys know, they said show me your budget and I will show you your intentions, pretty much what you prioritize, So we want to look at that aspect of it. But on the third part of it, we also want to look at the debt stock of the country. Why has the debt ballooned from, I think the last time we checked was 1.7 billion to almost 2 billion right now? What has been contributing towards that? And most importantly, trying to make sense of all three of the aspects and come up with certain solution to see what can be done better to have a better budget that prioritize the interests of the citizens in the country. Yeah.
Thank you. And Mr. Wallace, I'll give you a few minutes to just introduce yourself since this is your first time on the show. Again, thank you for coming.
Yes, again, my name is Wallace Powell, and very quickly with my background, as a matter of fact, the reason I'm here is because I have some understanding of how budget works both in government and private sector economies. So, well, I was once the controller of the Ministry of Defense, and then also was promoted to Controller General Republic of Liberia. So that gives me a strong background in how budget works, especially in Liberia. And I'll be glad to share whatever knowledge I have with this panel. Let me recognize very quickly, Mr. Yanko Zizi. He's an old hand in this business here, and it may surprise you, even though I'm older than Mr. Zizi, but Mr. Zizi is one of my mentors when it comes to financial management and what have you. So, I'm very excited, and I'm sure that together we will all come up with something that is going to be worthwhile to the ears of the listeners.
Thank you so much. Let me start with Mr. Zizi. Mr. Zizi, who eats, drink, and sleep these things. Mr. Zizi, let me get your take. We have the budget, we have the draft budget, and let me get your perspective on the national budget.
First, let me tell my good friend and guardian on economic and political issue, Wallace Powell. Thank you for that comment, but I think you are overrating me. So I will not be frisky to think that I'm good as you stated. But thank you anyway. Tonight, the budget, I think, is a serious case. You remember when our president of the world, Barack Obama, visited Ghana, Kenya, and Egypt, and he praised those three countries for doing good. But today, those three countries are in trouble because of the budget. Today, the Ghana cedi is sinking. The World Bank reported that 42% of the revenue is being used to pay the debt. And that's why, to me, this issue of where the debt is or what the debt is important. We should remember in 2010, people canceled 4.7 billion in 2010. I do not want to go to the external area, but I want to focus on the domestic. Why? Because I've sent some schedules there, but I don't think the moderators are interested in that issue today. So let's focus on the budget. Why are we including payments for domestic debt, specifically payments to the Central Bank of Liberia, when the records of the Central Bank of Liberia is not showing any payment? If you have done a schedule there, you can look at it. In 2018, the debt owed to the central bank by the Liberian government was 254 million. In 2020, it increased to 487 million. There have been payments according to the sheet I sent there. 72 million were paid in 2020/2021. 33 million were paid in 2021. 84 million was budgeted, and of course, 74 million were paid in 2022. If you add those three amounts, it comes to 189. But yet and still, if you go to the central bank reports, the debt owed to the central bank is 525 million from 254. How come the payments are included in the budget? How come those payments are not reflected in the books of the central bank? Both reports, the annual report and the auditor financial statement. The auditor financial statement does not show any decrease in the debt owed to the central bank. I mean, and at the same time, we are including payments. In 2023, you got 35 million. I'm raising this issue because we are not meeting the stipulation or the agreement we signed in Maputo in 2011 that we will allocate close to minimally 10% of our budget to agriculture. We are only allocating 6%. Sierra Leone is allocating 22% of their budget for education. We allocated only 7% and 12%. Why? So let's look at the budget. Why are we giving the lawmakers 44 million when they are going nowhere? They live and sleep and do everything in Monrovia. They visit the counties once in a while. Of course, reasonably, we can say the roads are bad, they can't travel. So therefore, because they are paid. So the budget is inflated with numbers. I'm even afraid to think that some of the revenue projections, it's like companies do on Wall Street. They include items that are not their revenue because they want to look good. It's like a young guy trying to go for his first date. He's going to look for coat suit from anywhere, even though they're not a coat suit. He makes up in order to look good. That's the same thing a lot of companies on Wall Street do because they want to meet the projection in terms of the revenue and the projection in terms of the profit. So sometimes they include dividend, which is not revenue, in order to meet that requirement that in fact they are increasing their market, they are getting new customers. So I'm afraid this government might be inflicting the revenue to give the impression that we are looking good, which is not the case. We did that so many years, and it will force or encourage department heads to go into projects because they believe government is making more money when that's not the true story.
Okay.
So let me stop here because I want other people to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Mr. Zizi lay a lot on the table there
Yeah.
for us to chew on. So, Gabriel, let me pass it to you, and then Mr. Wallace on what Mr. Let me start with Mr. Wallace first. That's is Mr. Zizi's perspective. Let me hear from you, sir.
Well, frankly, I don't know what aspect of the budget that we are discussing right now because, as you know, there are several aspects of the budget that we could discuss. We could discuss the revenue part. We could discuss the expenditure part. But if we talk specifically about this budget, well, I think I have to pass on that for right now because I have to.
Yeah.
I speak to the issue of specific aspects of the budget. Now, we haven't reached that point yet. Mr. Zizi spoke generally.
Right. And I want your general perspective on the budget.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, well, as we know, the budget has passed the lower house and it's gone to the Senate, and that's where the last debate will occur. Now, we are all aware also that there was supposed to be a joint meeting or discussion of this budget between both houses, but then that would have erased the need to go over a lot of things, but that did not occur. All we know now that the lower house passed the budget and it's going to the Senate. So now what's going to happen at the Senate? That's another level, but that's where we are right now. But of course, again, we know that a budget is just an estimate. It's an estimate of revenue that is expected, all things being equal, the revenue that is expected to come in and how you expect to spend it. So right now, that's what it is right now. So when we begin to talk about the specific part of this particular budget, I will have more to add.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif, your general perspective on the budget, what do you make of it?
Thank you. That is like Mr. Powell has just said, a budget is basically a projection of what is expected to be expended over a given year, which is the upcoming fiscal year. Our fiscal year changed from July to June. Now is January to December, which is supposed to be in conformity with other nations in the region. But having said that, there are a couple of major components which every speaker here is talking about: the revenue side and the expenditure side. The revenue side, you will see that it's actually a collection of what is expected to be collected by the Liberia Revenue Authority and other grants that are coming from our donor partners. And that gives you the total budget of what is expected to be spent. Now, sometimes there are shortfalls in those things. Then, of course, that's where you are not able to collect based on what you have projected. And sometimes there are surpluses. But for the purpose of this budget, which is about 777 million, I think we can go into the different aspects and begin to look at what are those things that were actually placed in the budget.
Right. And this is a general question. Anyone can answer it. When you were doing the budget, right? Because when I'm not a financial person, I'm looking at the budget, I'm seeing these lines. Is it backed by, let's say, projects? For instance, I'm saying Ministry of Education, we're going to build, or public, well, whoever is building school, we're going to build 4 public high schools, and this is how much it will cost. And based on that, they are giving the budget. So that at the end of the year, I want to see if the 4 public high schools were built, right? Is what really driving this budget for me to know that yes, or am I just looking at figures? Because in order for me to come back next year to see how it performed, I must have actually what the budget is going to. So Gabriel, what is driving those numbers? Is it actual projects in the background, and how can we check on them?
So thank you, Dennis. I guess what I want to do, I'll give my general overview and then I will answer that question. So
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with what Zizi said in terms of the the amount of money that is allocated to paying our debt, but that debt isn't being reflected on the central bank balance sheet. So that's something people in the House of Representatives need to look into, because that would be inflating numbers. Um, but that's from a general overview, right? So to answer your question, so a budget is pretty much, I think, as everybody stated, an estimate, but that estimate is based off of the previous year, right? So if you look at your previous year budget, let's say if it was, hypothetically, if it was $100 million, right? And you look now for this, you're trying to build this year's budget, right? You're looking at how much your economy is going to grow, right? So let's say you have 100 million last year, and now you're looking at building this year's budget. You look at how much the economy is going to grow based on different economic activity, based on tax policies, whether you made any changes to your tax policy or uh, monetary policy that you think will actually help boost the economy to increase that budget either by 2% or 3% or 4%. That will give you an estimate to say, okay, from 100 million, we expect to grow to at least another 3% or 4%. That's a general overview. Now, from a general overview standpoint, then you start going into the general state-owned enterprises, right? What are they doing in there to say that will actually drive revenue from that perspective? But most of it is driven from the tax collection. And for us, because we rely heavily on state-owned enterprises, the revenues coming from state-owned enterprises as well. So from a general overview standpoint, that is what drives the budget in terms of making the estimate. You look at your macroeconomic activity, and then you narrow it down to the state-owned enterprises, and then you look at your tax policy, whether you're increasing taxes on vehicles, on imports, on every other things that you think will contribute to the overall projection of that budget, which will actually ended up, making it, bigger than the previous year. But that's how an estimated budget is done. All right.
Mr. Jackson, your quick overview.
Yeah, my quick overview. I want to look at the current budget from the perspective of how the government has been borrowing from the central bank, and how their scheduled payments have been paid on time according to the Liberian People's Party editorial. So something is not is not going right, especially when it comes to the earning, the distribution earnings that's supposed to go to the national treasury. And so they borrow a lot of money from the central bank, but they were scheduled to start paying in 2029, and they started in 2020. So I'm looking at the fact that something is going wrong with how they are inputting those figures into the national budget when they should actually be depositing the distribution earnings into the treasury. They are not doing it now. So there's a short gap of $230 million that the Liberian government actually owe the central bank. And so I'm looking at it from that perspective. I didn't go through the whole budget, but when I read the Liberian People's Party editorial, I just assumed from there that something is wrong with this current 2023 budget, and it doesn't look good. And as Brother Yanko said, especially when it comes to the domestic side, who are they paying? Who are these vendors and others they are paying this huge amount of money to when it comes to domestic spending?
All right, thank you. So that leads us to the point of starting to discuss the budget now, and the best place to start.
Then
Hmm?
let me come in for a second. Just to give an overview based on the documents that were shared by all of us and what the budget actually is. And looking at 2023 budget is classified into different categories. I think according to this budget, you have compensation of employees, that is everybody that work for the government. That comes up to $295,620,000. And then below that, you have goods and services. Now, in order to actually run every ministry or agency, there is a budget for goods and services. What is that? The gasoline you use, the other things that you use to run the operation of the entity. And then you have another one there called subsidy. Now, as a government gave subsidy to other institutions. Like, for example, government gave Cottington University a certain amount of money every year as a subsidy to that institution. I'm just giving an example. And there are several of those things. So for subsidy here, it is slated as 10,124,000. Uh, Now, this is another part that they are looking at also, grants. Grants come in at $89 million. Social benefits, 16 million. Non-financial asset. What is basically non-financial asset? Things like computers and whatnot that you have in these offices. Uh, the last speaker, Honorable Jackson, was speaking of domestic liabilities. It is actually a fact that government does owe people domestically. For example, you and I know over the years, government does not own most of the buildings that is housing some of the ministries and agencies. Until recently, we have now what you call the ministerial complex, which is hosting about 5 ministries and agencies. But before that, ministries like Commerce, for example, they were in a rental building. Labor was in a private building. You can let's go on. The Ministry of Defense was in a building on Benson Street. Ministry of Justice, they were in a rental building, and all of those buildings are being abandoned now because there is a government building that they are all in. Ministry of Education, they are also in that ministerial complex. Those are all things that releases millions of dollars that the government was otherwise spending on those buildings. Now, were they actually paying for those buildings in every given year? No. Some of those buildings they owe on in Monrovia and in other counties. I'm sure Mr. Powell can speak on some of those things. Then you have foreign liability, which is our foreign debt. Now, you are required to be in a good standing. You are required to pay a percentage of whatever your foreign liabilities are, what you owe out there. And these are all projections. This is what they are expected to pay. So this is the framework of the budget. Now, if we begin to go into debt, what is owed to central bank and what is owed to other institutions, then that's taking us off the discussion a little bit, because as far as the national debt of the country is concerned, uh, this is something that is stacked up everywhere. And I'm not saying that it is okay. In the United States, where you guys said, for example, the foreign debt is around 11 trillion dollars now, somewhere around there. It could be a little more by now.
It's 31
In
trillion.
excuse me,
$31 trillion.
31 trillion. You see, I'm speaking in the past. I'm getting a little older and I don't remember what is happening today. I'm sorry. $31 trillion. The last I remember, it was around 20 trillion. How do you accumulate these debt? One way, which we would be going out of the budget discussion, then we are going into a totally different discussion, is by printing money. The government begin to stack up debt once they start printing money. But if we really going to discuss the budget, then the national debt is a different thing that we should be talking about. Thank you
It
very much
is.
for putting that out.
It is part of. It is part of. Without trying to. It is part of the budget. It is part of the budget, and that's what makes it. There's three items in the budget. There's the revenues, the expenses, and the expenses in part of the expenses that you'll see that you talked about. Part of that is allocated towards the debt payment, and it will be. I think you know premature of us, but if we don't talk about the quantum of debt that we carry, you know, as you mentioned, there's $31 trillion debt that we have in this country in the U.S. But guess what? The debt that the U.S. issue is very strong. The U.S. credit rating is triple A year over year. So you cannot compare the United States debt that is triple
There
A
is
with a
no
country that is triple
comparison.
A.
Nobody is trying to compare. All I'm
No,
saying,
no, let me
yeah,
land. Let me land. Let me land. Let me
go ahead.
finish. Right? You cannot compare the United States debt that is a country that is triple A, that prints money, and other countries are happy. Countries and companies are happy to buy that debt and carry it to a country that is cannot even sustain itself. So you cannot even try to measure that to say, oh, the United States print money. United States prints money because if people can buy it, we cannot even print our own money. So you cannot make that a comparison. You know.
All right. Thank you. And I put this. Mr. Zizi, you saying something?
Well, again, I don't want to get into that debate, but when you owe a lot of money, my days when I was getting up, when I was growing up in school, anybody who credits a lot will never respect that. You're not a mom if you didn't, in fact, help people, rather you are crediting. But I guess nowadays, crediting is okay. I think it's just bad given the way we're going. So whether the U.S. credit got triple A, full A's or not, just crediting too much can limit you. And I think we need to focus on coming back to our case. Because right now, most of our revenue basically is collecting taxes from the poor people in Monrovia who are buying the goods that we are importing. The import tax is from 0 to 35%. And most of our revenue coming from the port, free port of Monrovia. There are most of our revenue coming from close to 59%. How much more revenue can we add, by taxing people in Monrovia or taxing people in Liberia? So we have to make sure to reduce unnecessary expenditure so that we can't continue to overtax the people in Monrovia. Nowadays you go on the street, every now and then, they start inspecting cars because they want to generate revenue. Go back to the budget of 2020, 2021, where most of the revenue, hard-earned revenue came from. Basically, it's these miscellaneous revenue they're collecting. You go fly your hair, you pay tax. Their father, you pay tax. Birth certificate, you pay tax. You are single, you want to get certificate to get married, you pay tax. And that's the kind of collection we're talking about. Pretty soon people are going to rebel and we'll have chaos in the streets. So the way to do it is to reduce expenses in order not to continue to collect more taxes from the poor people. When you import goods, you tax it, you basically passing that revenue collected to the people who buy the goods. So that's
Thank
what
you.
we need to look at.
Thank you. So let's start with our expenses. When we say government expenditure, what are we talking about? And I had a summary here, like I believe compensation of employees. This 2023 is 295 million. Use of goods and services 106.3 million. Subsidy and so on and so on. So let's start with the revenue side. Gabriel, how you want to set this up for revenue? What really constitute, I mean, for expenditure, what constitute our expenses? Gabriel, you are muted. Are you talking to us? Gabriel, you are muted.
Yes, please, please. Sorry, sorry, I was muted. Could you please put the slide back up? Let me go over that. So I guess everybody is looking at the expenditure screen here. So I will go over them line item by line item, and I will point out one thing, and then you guys can, we can go off of the question from that, right? So we have the expenses, the compensation for employees. I want you guys to pay key attention to that. The key data that I want you guys to look at is the compensation for employees for 2021 was just 149 million. Fast forward the year later, look how much it's gone up to, $292 million, almost doubled.
92 million.
I will leave that with you guys. Just think about that. From 149 million to almost doubled just in 1 year. I will leave that. And then we have the expenses of goods. I mean, the uses of goods and services. I think Mr. Sherry talked about that. So pretty much the services that the government use, the stationery and all of those things. That's why it goes through, right? That's that's the line item cost for that. Subsidies. I think Mr. Sharif actually went over that. Subsidies. The government gives subsidies to different, investments, companies that are coming into the country, or even universities. They also give out grants, right? There's also social benefits. Social benefits could be things
No.
like your social security, right? And we have the non-financial assets, right? I think Mr. Sherry talked about that. There are assets like, the government services that that's what that line item covers. We also have what we've been talking about, domestic liabilities. That's pretty much the domestic debt that we have in the country, how much we pay towards it. Also pay attention to that line item, right? In 2021, it was just 30, so round it up to just 31 million. The next year in 2022, it went up to $70 million, 69.9, right? And then we have our foreign liability, the same thing. In 2021, it was just $16 million, right? The
16
following
billion.
year, yeah, 16 million, 16.4, right? The following year, it more than doubled, right? So I would say this, and I would push this right back to you guys, to Dennis, to give the follow-up question. What happened in 2022 that saw the expenditure in our budget doubling? What happened? Did we, by some magical number, double the amount of services that we provide to the government? Did we hire a whole, boatload of people that were now working in the government? Right? I can make excuses for the domestic and foreign liabilities to say there's interest rate environment that was happening at the peak of the inflation. So we can contribute to that to say the interest rate going up. So that means we have to pay higher interest rate on the debt that we owe domestically and internationally. But what about the expenses to the compensations for the employees?
Thank you.
How do we justify the doubling of it, right?
Thank you.
So those are the things I want you guys to look at. Help me make sense of it as much as I'm trying to make sense of it as well. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mr. Powell.
can I say something?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
okay. Okay, Dennis, you want me? I just want to respond something to what was just put out by Gabriel. And first, I want to say hi to brother Yangwe Zeze. Yangwe might not know me too well. He probably know me. We play football at Newport Street Junior High School with my late cousin Alexander Jackson. And
Thank you very much.
yeah, I was just a small boy, but I remember when you, Alex, and Emmanuel Bouya, all those guys used to, and Dave Jala used to keep conversation. So I was just in high school then, but I still remember you. And I just want to thank you for the work you've been doing over the years, especially being transparent on economic issues concerning the country. You know, yeah. So I just want to tip in there as former employees of Bank of America and working in banking operations. Now, when it comes to itemization, you have to have receipts. And one of the things I see in documentation of budgets in Liberia, mostly in most third world countries, we don't produce receipts. I was responsible to do the fair accounts overnight settlements with the debit and credits, and everything that was spent or anything that was bought by the government, even if it's about or Coca-Cola, there's a receipt to come in to do the debit and credit settlements, to send it to money transfer. So I mean, all these figures are out there, but do we have the receipts to show, especially as we're talking about the domestic side of it, and even the social side of it, or the social spending? Is it on social programs that benefit in the Liberian people? You know, but there has to be receipts to show these figures, because you can see from 2021 all the way to 2023, there has been an increase in the budget, in the budgetary spending. So I just want to know, do they have the receipts that they can put online for bring people to see and know how this expenditure came about?
Thank you. And who will know little more about these things than the Controller General? Mr. Powell, let's look at the expenses side that we just talked about. Where are these coming from? And Gabriel asked about the jump. So anytime there is something happening there, it can tell you, or something might have happened within this time. What will cause such an increase?
Well, when you look at the expenditure side of the budget, that's where you find most of the corruption in the budget process. You see, because the expenditure, most of the line items in the expenditure are not actually meant as a government obligation. What's happening right now is that the new budget process is that they create false pockets in which they put money in to use for purposes other than what is indicated in the budget. For instance, a typical example is that where there is an issue right now where the $50,000 has been budgeted for a clinic in somewhere in Nimba, not Nimba, but Bond County. But somebody says that there's no clinic in Nimba County by that name or nomenclature, whatever. So what does that mean? It means that in preparing the budget, somebody stashed away $50,000 and put it in a compartment, a false compartment, of which they will go back later on and take the money and give it to for some other things, like maybe presidential travels or what have you. So as far as the the items in the budget for expenditure right now, if you analyze those expenditures, you'll find most of them are actually false compartments.
And talking about false compartment, this is a little more breakdown of that expenditure side, saying for public administration sector, it's going to be 308.5 million. For municipal government sector, 28.5 million, and so on and so forth. Health sector, education, agriculture, industry and commerce. So, Mr. Sherry, looking at that, what more does it tell you about government expenditure?
Thank you,
But please,
Dennis.
please allow me to just write upon what you just said. Um, um, take take all right. Take for instance one of the issues we have right now is where um, um, speaking about the compartments of the budget. Um, okay. Anyway, let me let that pass for now.
All right, Mr. Sharif.
Yes. Let me come in. Thank you very much. I just wanted to piggyback on what Dennis was saying, that we should look at the numbers on the budget here. And yes, that number is staggering from what is it, 146 to 297 for what? For bring that back.
This
Yes.
one.
Uh, Now, this number 149 to 292, I can bet you anything. Okay. I think this whole number here is wrong in this entire column because I don't think anything in there has changed much from 2021 to now. The reason why I say that I think whoever plugged these numbers in, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with what they were looking at, but it just doesn't jive down with the entire budget. That's the only explanation I can come up with. Because I can tell you that in 2020, there was something called harmonization that took place in Liberia. And what that was intended to do was to actually reduce government expenditure on compensation from more than 300 million dollars to below 300 million dollars, as it was worked on together with the International Monetary Fund. So the cap for that, from what I know, is supposed to be somewhere around 297 million. So if you look at the budget and you go over other line items, ministry by ministry, it will show that same number. I think you should. Oh, oh, that was the special budget. Now you see here special budget, special budget. That
Okay,
was a time.
the
Now,
supplementary.
now I catch it. No, I'm coming. I'm coming. The
Mm.
numbers that we are looking out there as a special budget 2021, in that year, the government actually ran two different budgets.
Yeah, that's
Each
true.
was for around 6 months. You see that?
Yeah,
SP
that's
budget
true.
action? Yeah. So I believe that's what it was at that time. What that was a special budget which ran for about 6 months. Now I'm able to catch it. Because
Yeah,
if
that's
you
true.
look at the other one, it's just straight. 2024, for example, is the projection, but this one was a special budget which was divided into two. So, but looking at the budget, for example, if you go down to the Ministry of Finance, Dennis, you were making a comment on that earlier. The budget. Can you throw that slide in there?
Yeah. Go ahead. I'll find it.
Are you able to bring that?
For finance ministry.
Yeah, Ministry of Finance, for
Yeah,
example.
just
I
go
just
ahead.
saw.
I'll bring that.
Okay. Now, why is it that the Ministry of Finance budget is so voluminous? You were asking me that question, and I couldn't really answer it off the bat. But maybe Mr. Power here, who is more of an expert in these areas as a former Controller General, can come in. As far as obligations or debt is concerned, that is paid. Once it goes into the next year, it is paid by the Ministry of Finance. So if you go under the Ministry of Finance budget, you will see that domestic debt, and foreign debt. Those are all money that actually come directly on the Ministry of Finance. But if you look at their other budget as far as compensation and use of goods and services, is just like any other ministry. And the other thing I also want to talk about, what you are looking at here as grant, I don't think is money, and that's another thing that we probably need to talk about. But I think that is actually money that is coming here. I don't think it should be, or it is on the expenditure side. It is more on the revenue side. That is money that is actually coming into the ministry, which they are spending right away. So I'm not really understanding that part. But if you look at the other two numbers, please go back to that slide one more second, please. If you go back to the other number, you will see that $35 million will go towards domestic liabilities, which is debt, and $56 million will go towards foreign obligation, which is another sector of the debt. So that is why you see the ministry's budget is so voluminous to up to $131 million. I think that is real estate right there. Thank you. And what was the other question?
Mr. Zeze, you can touch on the expenses also, so we can go to the revenue side and then the debt. Mr. Zeze, can you hear me?
Is he still there?
Mr. Zeze, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah. You have any comment on the expenses side before we go to revenue?
So I'm telling you, from top of my eye, I'm so frustrated when I look at the numbers here. Because I gave you a typical example. Mm-hmm. If you go to the half year, 2021, then 2021, they got a number which was like 44 million in terms of the debt payment. But you can see subsequently 2022 is not 44 million, it's 35 million. But if you record an expenditure 2021 and you are now in 2023, that amount not supposed to change anymore. It's supposed to be what it was. You can't be recording in 2023 and adjust a number in 2021. Why would that? Why do that? If you go to one particular item that is in 2023 budget, they call it non-financial assets. See how the amount ballooned. It was around 20 million, it was 50 million, it will now to 135 million. I mean, how can you just increase such an amount like that? I mean, without explanation. Anytime there's a significant increase in anything, whether it's revenue or what, you should give an explanation why. Or at least there should be some projection made to tell the public that we are shifting from one to another. Most of the projects we got here, whether it's road, these are all financed by NGOs, most of them. So how come non-financial assets increased from 20 million to 135 million? What?
And where are you reading? Where are you reading from?
If you go to the 2023 budget, look for non-financial assets. Go to 2023.
You mean the cumulative?
Accumulative, right. He's looking out from 5 million to 153. I think that's what we're looking at here. All right.
Where
I think that's what he's looking at.
Non-financial assets.
Non-financial assets.
Non-financial assets.
Summary.
It's the total. I'm saying you got a particular page that gives the summary.
Yeah.
Where you got wages, the goods and services, subsidy, non-financial assets, domestic debt, foreign debt. Looking at that, you see 2020, 2021, 2018, it was around 5, 6, 20 million, 30 million. I jumped to 100 million. It's like what happened to finance ministry. All of a sudden, around 28 million,
Okay.
today it's 150 million. What is finance ministry doing to have a budget of 150 million? What? What is it doing? Like you asked the question correctly, Dennis Shah. How come finance ministry budget has ballooned to 100 million? Or are they saying any debt that is being paid or whatever financial, non-financial asset that amount is allocated to Ministry of Finance? What is causing Ministry of Finance to jump from 28 million in 2016, 2017 is now up to 135 million in 2022, 2023, 2024? What is Ministry of Finance going to have all that money? At the same time, you got LRA getting 15 million, 16 million, 17 million. What are those two ministries doing to come close to 180 million? What?
Yeah, I think.
Can I offer something on that particular aspect of the discussion?
Sure.
Okay, this is what I was attempting to refer to. The compartments. The Ministry of Finance has that much money compared to other agencies of government because in that instance, the Ministry of Finance is acting as a mini bank where they take the money and put it into those compartments, not for any specific use, or they could put it on a domestic. Let's say they use domestic debt. Let's say they put in $100 million for domestic debt, but yet when you ask them for the breakdown of the $100 million, who do we owe $100 million to? They don't come up with that. And so the Minister of Finance, he comes in and he brings in a lot of nice what you call words, but actually what it is that $100 million is there like a mini bank, and the Minister of Finance can from time to time go into that account, take out money and use it for on budgeted items. All right. I don't want to give examples of it because I'll be being too specific.
Can I ask something?
Someone asked the question: why does the Minister of Finance? Sure.
No, go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to ask something. Okay. So we are using $100 million as an example, just as an example. The Ministry of Finance is keeping $100 million. It says domestic debt. I'm using domestic debt as an example. The question that comes up is about who do we owe? We need a list of the a breakdown of who we owe $100 million to. If you notice that the Ministry of Finance has never come up with a breakdown of who that $100 million is owed to. Behind that, because actually that money was not meant for domestic debt. Maybe out of that, maybe it's 25 million. So what is this? The other 75 million is about. The other 75 million, right, that comes again to the point of corruption. The other $75 million is kept there so that the Ministry of Finance or the Minister of Finance can redirect it to any line of expenditure that he sees fit. And I don't want to give examples of that. So that is why next year, perhaps, they will add another $50 million. So now it becomes $150 million. So now you are correct when you ask. So but why is it increasing? So then the question comes up again: who do we owe? So they never come up with the breakdown of that 150 or even the $100 million. So actually, it's a mini bank. It's a storage facility for, I would say, unscrupulous use of funds. So you can look at it from that perspective as well.
Thank you, Mr. Zizé. Before you come in, I want to ask something.
And that is why the Ministry of Finance budget keeps going on, because they have direct control over the expenditure of that fund.
Okay. Yeah, you will come in, Mr. Zizé. I just want to throw one thing in there because I was very curious that finance ministry is not some service delivery. Why is it so big? So I look at something very small, and that's stationary, right? Yeah. So when I look at stationary, I see that the national legislature for stationary 2022 is 34,000, 23 is 34,000. Then for printing and binding 250,000. Then I come to Ministry of Finance.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Ministry of Finance for stationery 2022 was 61,000. 2023 is 136,000.
Yep.
Then for printing, binding, and publication of services, 2022 is 10,000, 10.6 thousand, 10,659. And then for printing, 2023, it went up to a whopping 232,000. Then I look at judiciary, the people that are supposed to, the clerk, the justice of peace typing. So I thought they will have little more stationery, but their stationery is $5,000 for 2022 $7,500 for 2023. Then when it comes to printing, binding, and publication, 1,200, 1,500. So that's why I asked the question: what really is this finance ministry doing? Is it delivering any form of service? Is it generating revenue? What really is doing?
Can I ask something real quick, Dennis?
Yeah.
So I don't want to just throw out the words of corruption here and there, but the budget itself, the law that makes up the budget, right, that we see every year that comes out, I think they need to go back to it to revise it. And the reason why I say that is because in serious countries or in serious organizations, there's variance. So when you see a budget, every time you see a budget, you'll see variance. So variance is the projection, the variance, and the actual, and the variance. So that means the variance mean the difference. So if you project this, the actual budget mean this is what actually we end up making or we end up spending. And then there's a difference. They give you the difference, which is the variance, right? In serious organization or countries or companies, right? There's a number, there's a percentage that if you go over this, you will need an explanation. What do I mean by that? So if you're doing a budget, let's say I'll go back to my $100 million example. You said there's $100 million we made this year, last year, and you're projecting that we're going to make 150 million, right? If they because there's almost a 50% increase,
Right.
you're supposed to have a rule that if it's over by this percentage, you need to explain as to why that increase happened or why that decrease happened, right? So let's say if I say I'm going to spend $100, right? I made $100 this year, and I'm going to make a $200 next year, right? I should tell you, say, okay, the reason why I think I'm going to make $200 next year is because such and such happened. I expecting such, but we don't see that in the budget. So that's why all of us are having all these questions. We see this big difference in the budget, or if you look in the budget, there's no explanation. So it just leaves you guessing as to why is that variance there? Why do we have that big gap in the budget? Like, the expenses or the interest payment to the foreign liability. There's a big difference. You should, because a lot of people, you're accountable to a lot of people in a country, you should have an explanation, even if it's a foot. A good accountant will do that. They will give you a footnote. So this is what happened, this is why we went over, or this is what happened, this is why we spent that much money. But there is no such thing. So everybody look at the budget, they're confused like a blind bat, asking question, why this, why that, why that. It's incumbent upon the people that do the budget to explain, to make it as easy. Oh, this budget went up by $100 million. You look at the footnote, it will be able to tell you, okay, this is what happened, this is why it happened. But we don't do that. So we just leave Liberian people guessing, and at the end of the day, we all ask all the random questions to which we have no answer to. Right. So that's first thing we have to do. Somebody in the legislation needs to go back to those people and say, you have to be accountable. If this budget increased by a certain amount or this expense increased by a certain amount, you need to explain as to why that happened. Even if a footnote, one or two sentences in a footnote to allow people to understand that. That's what we need to do.
Thank you.
Dennis, can I add statement to
Sure.
that? I concur with Gabriel, because I mean, if you go into develop a budget, there should be budget activities from one fiscal year to the other year, and those activities should be explained even in the press. Take for example in Massachusetts, before Governor Baker left, in 2021 all the way to 2022, he was explaining that there was going to be a budget surplus of $35 billion that was going to be given back to the taxpayer. And this was something that was recorded through news agency. So I mean, in the case of building up the budget, just before you bring the budget to the press, there should be an itinerary of activities that explain how the budget was created, like Gabriel just said. But in the case of Liberia, they just bring out the figures and they don't give activities or how the budget is going to be from one fiscal year to the other fiscal year, and that brings tremendous confusion. Take, for example, they have the amount there for social spending. I mean, which is managed comparing to the kind of social disabilities we have in Liberia. So, I mean, how much is being spent on social programs to help the poor, to build institutions, both in the health and educational sector? It's not even explaining the budget. So, I mean, we have to develop this set of system. If we're going to move from one budget to the other, there should be budget activities that explain how this budget is going to be created, whether we're going to have a surplus in revenue collection, or we're going to have more expenditure, or we're going to have more spending. So, this activity is not being recorded in the Liberian budget, which make it a very transparent budget, and which we need, because we have suffered for too long. We need transparency in how we handle government money. I don't want to project this, but last time, Frank Stewart, who was the budget director, he was executed. I don't know if because of that. And we cannot go back to the past. We have to be transparent. We have to be genuine, to be in public. The people know, and we have to graduate from this system of not being exposing what is going on within the government finances, which is detrimental to the country macroeconomics program.
Thank you. Adma, you want to say something before we go to our revenue side?
Yes, I want to comment a little bit. Gentlemen, I think we are using a lot of conjectures to discuss the budget. Now, Mr. Powell, you have done this before, but I believe in preparing this budget or looking at this voluminous document here, you don't expect to see the list of every single vendor within the budget. I don't think that there is anywhere in the budget that you can actually put all of those vendors, as you were suggesting, Mr. Powell. If you are looking at every single one of the people that the government owes money to list them in the budget, do you know how many pages this would be? What you could be asking for, or what we could be discussing, is there a list of those that are expected to be paid in this budget year? But you and I know fully well there is no way that you are going to include every single vendor in the payments within your budget. Even when you did this in the Republic of Liberia, I don't think that format was ever used, because it is just not feasible. Now, what can be done? There can be an attachment to that to state the fact, statement of fact. Who are the people you owe? These are the people that you owe. But to say all of that should be included in the budget, I don't know where that is done. Maybe you can teach me on that.
No, I think my phone. They want to deal with it.
All right. That takes us to revenues. When we say revenue side of the budget, okay, Mr. Powell, you want to come in first? Okay, Gabriel, let's go to the revenue side.
Yeah.
When we say revenue,
I can't hear.
oh, you can hear us? Maybe somebody call you. So what you do, okay, Mr. Power, is to go out and come back in.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we can hear you. So if you're on and you take a WhatsApp call, Facebook call, we will not hear you.
We can hear you now. Can you
We
hear
hear
us?
you. It's fine now. You just have to get off the call on a Facebook call. Okay. Anyways,
Gabriel, let's go to revenue. When
yeah.
we say the revenue, first of all, what do we mean? And then we go into the budget and see what the revenue picture looks like.
Yeah. So basically, revenues meaning what we call income, the income that the government brings in. Now, for any state or country, they get that from taxes. Uh, mostly taxes. Concessions in our case, uh, and there are numerous other sources that the government get this money from. Pretty much the amount of money that the government brings in every year, uh, or what we call the income. So that is pretty
Right.
much what the revenue aspect is. But hopefully, do you have a slide that we can go over? Because
Right.
I don't want to.
Right.
There are a lot of sources that the government collects its revenues from.
Right. And one of those sources where I want us to start from is grant, what we expect to get from foreign partners.
Right.
And sometimes we bank on that and say, okay, this is what we expect to get. Somebody will give it to us.
Mm-hmm.
And probably that's one of the reasons sometimes we have shortfalls.
Yep.
How realistic is that to really say somebody's going to give me this, and then you do a budget on that and expect it to happen?
And that is for me, I think that is one of the biggest problems that we have. And if you've been following the budget release every year, that this is why almost every other year we'll see a recast of the budget. You cannot rely on grant as part of your budget. I mean, you can put it in there, but it cannot be your, what I would call, you have to pencil it in. So it's not something that you can rely on heavily, that you're going to get that money in the nonprofit world, right? They call it there's a thing called donor fatigue, right? Somebody keep giving you money and you're not making good use of it. Giving you money, they're not keep making good use of it. They get tired. So if I'm giving you $100 and you're not making good use of it every year, I'm going to reduce that to $80. And if I see you still making the same mistake, I'm going to reduce that. So if you are banking on that $100 that you think I'm going to keep giving you $100, and you put that in your budget, or in your budget, or whatever your revenue source is, it's not a good prediction, because I have a fatigue as well. This guy is not a good manager of our money, so I'm not going to keep giving you the same amount. And that's the mistake we make every time. We rely on these grant that the international partners and donors promise us, and we inflate that into the budget as if it's going to be permanent. But these people have their own budget too. So if they make their own budget and it doesn't add up, they will cut on their own budget, and that's going to reflect on the government as well. So that is one of the biggest problems that we always face. Rely on donors fund or grant and putting it in the budget, and realizing at the time that the donors come back to us and say that we cannot meet that, and we have to go back now and recast our budget to reduce it. So that's something that in the list of every other thing that's wrong with the way the budget is done. That's something that they need to be very technical about in terms of when they're creating their budget.
I hope I'm able to see the exact area, kind of little small.
It's
But,
very, very. Can you do a full screen?
right,
Maybe
but that's the oops.
try a full screen.
No, full
No,
screen really works.
I think Ahmed is speaking. Ahmed, you're muted.
You may need to zoom it, and then that will hopefully. But I am able to pull it, and I can go through those numbers. Do you care to?
Let's see. Does that help?
Yeah.
I think that's the. But anyway,
Yeah. That's
what you have there is
what I'm saying.
what you have there is
Yeah.
total government revenue forecast. We have
Yes.
domestic revenue, external, blood flow, transit revenue, tax revenue, taxes on income and profit, real property tax, goods and services tax, taxes on international trade, other taxes, non-tax revenue, property income, dividend, roll fund, the wonderful roll fund, royalties and rents, other property income, administrative fees, fines, penalty, and forfeits, miscellaneous.
Okay, so why you said to put road fund there? Let me just go through these numbers. Again, this is what the budget here we are talking about 2023 is as presented here, 777,943. But let's look at the road fund which you just spoke of. What is it? 26 million. Road fund 26 million. What is the road fund basically? Road fund comes from gasoline tax in Liberia. There is a surcharge of, I believe, 25 cents for every gallon that is sold in Liberia. That money is collected by the petrol sellers or the fuel companies like Total or Connex or SP or NP, any of these companies that are actually buying fuel to sell. They are given the fuel, but after they sell that fuel, they are supposed to report back 25 cents for every gallon that they were able to sell. And that is where that money is coming from. You can remember a few years ago, there was a situation where somebody collected the taxes and they said they didn't have to pay back and yada, yada, yada. Uh, Other things happened thereafter. But these are actually real revenues that we are looking at, like taxes on international trade, for example. Now, I believe, I'm not sure because it is not explained here. I believe this could be coming from like some of the maybe maritime and those kinds of things, because that's the only thing I can really think of. Uh, Goods and service tax. Every goods that are sold, they call it GST tax. Every goods and services that are brought in Liberia or goods that are brought in Liberia, you pay that taxes on it. But of course, in Liberia, is the reverse. It is not the consumers that pay upfront. The importers pay those taxes upfront, and then they can then add it on the prices of their goods as they go on to sell it. But I think one of the things that maybe should really interest most people in Liberia, I was trying to look at it, is real property tax. Real property tax in Liberia is one of the minuscule revenue generating areas because almost most people, as you may, it may surprise you, most people don't really pay taxes on their real property. Some people pay. Over the years, LRA has tried to actually collect these taxes, but that is still around 6 million or so. But these figures are actually in million. That's somewhere around 6 million. But if you look at other things like tax revenue, now tax revenue, I believe a lot of this is actually coming from what you call importation. Like if Firestone bring things here, other companies are bringing things here, people are bringing things here that's for sale. The taxes that are collected on those items is what they are actually talking about. But overall, the revenue aspect is divided into two. Domestic revenue, what you are raising domestically, and then you are looking at the external resources. So with the external resources coming together with the domestic, because the external resources is around 110 million, and then the domestic revenue is somewhere around 666 million. But if you break all of that, there are some areas I think Liberia could actually do well. But there are other areas we are also not doing too well. Fines and penalties, forfeitures, you know, where those are coming from, all of these things can come with other attachments. These are all attachments I'm sure Mr. Wallace Power is very familiar with. So he can go into that. But if we can discuss the revenue as it is in these documents, I think it will really speak and stands out for itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. We are discussing revenue, and so for the next 15 minutes, we'll talk about revenue, and maybe take some comments and questions, and then call it a day. So,
what part of the what aspect of the revenue are we speaking of right now? Are we speaking of the line items or what?
yeah,
I'm not with you on that. As a matter,
I think we're looking at the revenue in its entirety, so you can pick if you want to do a line item, you can talk about, but yeah, we're looking at it in its entirety.
Well, I gotta pass on that right now because I don't feel it, because we all know that everything here is about projection, and we'll talk about the revenue. That this is what the government is expects to generate from all of its activities. That's the revenue aspect of it. Okay, and where it is, everything here is about projections. So now, how the revenue is distributed in the budget? Well, what do you want to look at it as? What is the importance, or is it necessary to have this budget line item? And I was speaking mostly about the situation where there are budget line items which they don't relate to anything that's happening. And this is what I give you a small example, which was the clinic in Bong County. One of the legislatures says that they need $50,000 for the clinic, and as a matter of fact, the Ministry of Finance or the Budget Bureau allocated $50,000 for this clinic. Now, another of the legislators said that there's no clinic there that requires $50,000. My stress was that this is how they put this money in compartments to later on take out to use at will. And that is why the domestic debt, for example, if it was $100,000 last year, this year it comes to the same $100,000 because the debt goes up but doesn't come down, but the money is expended. So the question is, how did you expend the $100,000 or $100,000? How was it expended? There has been no answer on how this money was spent. That's what I'm talking about. And this is why one of the reasons that the Ministry of Finance keeps repeating domestic debt, $100,000 last year, it'd be $150,000 this year. It goes up. It's supposed to be coming down, but at the same time, I don't know. So, but the part about that, there's no breakdown of how this or who this money was paid to, and so that is why the Ministry of Finance keeps stagnated when it comes to any particular line item. So that's why I said, for me, I better serve this panel when we're speaking to specifics.
right.
That's
So let me
example
ask you this, because
Dennis,
why
most of the time we complain of corruption in Liberia, corruption, and revenue is one of the places where we're supposed to get the money. Mm-hmm. Take for instance, road funds, right? So when we talk about road funds, somebody's supposed to collect the tax, 25 cents on a gallon, and report it to government. And so there could be an opportunity to steal money right there. Let's look at the tax expenditures. So tax expenditure in the form of like duty-free. So we are granting duty-free privileges to all these people, lawmakers, or even a company as big as Metal Steel. You can bring in this. So it is most of the time we talk of corruption in these broader terms. But let's look at the budget, look at the revenue side, and see how maybe we can lose money or corruption can make us to lose money from this revenue side.
Yeah. And
interestingly,
Dennis,
go ahead,
Dennis,
Ahmed.
I just want to ask. I
Let,
just want to
let
ask
Mr.
Uncle
Powell
Sheriff a question.
let Mr. Powell
Oh, okay,
earn his thought on that part of the budget, and then you can come in.
okay,
Mr. Powell, go
okay.
ahead.
That's a bad connection.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me now?
The connection is bad.
Yes.
Can
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes.
His
Okay.
connection is bad.
Yes, we are talking about revenue. Now, one of the phrases that is commonly used by Minister of Finance is a budget shortfall. Now, that is a phrase that has never been explained. Now, we all know what budget shortfall is. Basically, what budget shortfall is that you did not get the revenue that you expected to get. Now,
Yeah.
let's look at, but that's a cover name for money taken out of the treasury illegally. Now, you projected that you're going to get $100 million. Now, you said there's a budget shortfall of $25 million. That means you want to collect $75 million. But that $25 million is supposed to mean budgetary shortfall in this case means that you were not able to collect that $25 million. But what budgetary shortfall means in the system of corruption is that you collected the entire $100 million, but you could not account for $25 million. And so we use the common phrase budgetary shortfall. That's another form of corruption. This is what is real. This is what happens in reality in Liberia. So whenever the Minister of Finance says there's a budgetary shortfall, we have to define what that means from both angles. Is it budgetary shortfall due to under collection of revenue, of projected revenue, or is it due to the fact that you collected the $100 million, but you cannot account for $25 million, and that's what the corruption is. That's why I say I speak to specific. This is a specific case. You
Thank you.
are domestic. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. You wanted to come in.
Yeah.
Emmanuel.
No, I just want to ask Uncle Sheriff some question. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear
I
me?
can hear you.
You asked them if you have a
Hello?
question,
Yes.
ask the panel. Anybody
Yeah.
can pick it up.
Yeah. I have a question. I have a question for Uncle Sheriff concerning the road fund. Uncle Sheriff, the road fund is revenue. Is it for building roads and also maintenance of roads? Because my last visit to Liberia, I saw the road maintenance is bad, especially the road coming from Monrovia going to Cape Mount. I was making my way to Robertsport, to Gola Connect, all those areas there, and I saw the road that President Joe had built. The road is bad, is getting better every time. So is the fund collected to as a source of revenue to build roads and also maintain roads?
Thank you for asking that question. Like I was speaking specifically to that line item earlier, road fund. Again, that is an estimate of what is expected to be collected from the on the
Tax.
National Road Fund, okay, as taxes. But yes, and that's a very good question. In fact, a lot of the money that is collected from road fund is very minuscule to even go around Monrovia alone. Nonetheless, can you hear me?
May I
Yes.
come
Can you
in?
hear
May
me?
I come
Yes,
in
I
on
can hear you.
May I
Yes,
come
we
in
can
on
hear
the
you.
road fund, please?
Yeah, I can hear
May I
you.
come in on the road fund?
Nonetheless, the entire
I need to
yes.
come in on the road
Can you
fund.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Let him land.
let's
Let
hold
him
on, Mr.
land.
Yes, that's
Powell.
the
Let's
Yeah, I
Sheriff
can hear you,
complete his
bro.
thought.
Okay, there are too many people talking. Now,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Sheriff.
the $26 million that we are talking about cannot even fix the roads in Monrovia alone, never mind the entire country. Yes, and what has been done over the years, money that is collected on the road fund was actually spent as it was deemed necessary by the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Public Works at time, where recently there was a legislative hearing where it was discussed and agreed that the road fund should be divided on the different counties so that development on those roads can actually take place. You're right. I just got back from Cape Mount, as a matter of fact. Last weekend, I went to a place in Gola Connect just to come in a little bit on what you were saying. Coming from Senje, going towards Mano River, not Mano River, but Lofa Bridge. There's a road there from Senje
Lofa
that
Bridge.
goes directly. Yes. And to be honest with you, I never thought I could have seen such a road in Cape Mount or that this close to Monrovia. But yes, the roads are bad everywhere. But if you also go to other places around the country, it's pretty much the same thing. Roads are things that our leaders in this country in the past have never really ever concentrated on. But if you came to Monrovia today, I was coming from Monrovia and I was coming from Cape Mount and I had to drop somebody off in Cardwell. There's a road that comes from Dixville, directly from Cardwell. And that's for you, Mr. Carter. To my greatest surprise today, I was riding on this road. I couldn't believe it. Somebody encouraged me, oh, take the Dixville road that takes you to Bannersville. And I was very reluctant because that was a really bad road a year ago. And today I went there, it is completely paved. I mean, it took me minutes from Cardwell to Somalia Drive. So yes, there are developments that are going on from the road fund around the country. In fact, more than that, because a lot of these roads are also being funded, some of them by the World Bank and other donors, and most of it is actually also coming from the Ministry of Public Works, from what I learned, because I'm making my business to know these things. So there are roads projects that are going on around the country. What happened over the last few years, the road corridors around Monrovia and a lot of access roads were built, like Johnsonville, like the Dixville going to Cardwell. These roads are being built. Yes, it is true. The main roads, like coming from Freeport to, or even from the Gabriel Tucker Bridge, going all the way to what you call the St. Paul Bridge, it still looks bad. But there are access roads in there that were there. So the road fund is actually working to a great extent. Maybe we need to also start looking at other areas. But another thing I wanted to touch on before I give up my time, I think we are using a lot of conjecture, and this goes to Mr. Powell in discussing the budget, because we can't always say we are loading things into the budget for other things. I think you yourself, you have sat in that seat before. I don't think it's a fair thing to always assume that everything that happens, people are taking it and trying to siphon it in other ways. Now, you were talking about payment. How can you actually attach all of these attachments to a budget? There is no way that you are going to list out all of your vendors in any budget. It is not possible. It's insurmountable that nobody will be able to read that kind of a budget. And you know that, Mr. Powell, because you did this budget before. So to sit here and say that all of these things are not explained.
I'm sorry. In that case, how did you arrive at $100 million to domestic debt? Did you plug the figure? That's what I'm talking about. Every line item, especially when you come to debts, which of course we all know is accounts payable. Every line item must be broken down, must be itemized for that matter. So the simple question is, and what I was alluding to, the simple question is, who do we owe $100 million? So I'm being specific. I'm not talking generally when it comes to, I'm giving an example of a specific line item. Okay, and that is where I'm speaking about corruption coming from an undisclosed line item or on a non-detailed line item, and I'm using accounts payable or domestic debt as an example of corruption. I'm being specific. That's all. Now, road funds, very quickly, road funds is for building of roads. That was the emphasis is on building of road. Road maintenance, which is conducted by the Ministry of Public Works, is a different line item.
Thank you. Time is fast spent. I want us to one of the issues that's being thrown around a lot is budget performance report. Uh, Jimmy Eastburn is asking, he said, Mr. Powell, what about the budget performance report? But what I want to add there, and I started with it before, in order to have a budget performance report, meaning how what did you do? You said your ministry wanted $10 million. What did you do with it? So it should first come with kind of performance budget, right? Meaning based on what I said I was going to do, it was written down, and it's based on that you're going to now ask me, did you do it? If I say I was going to build 10 schools with this amount, now after the budget year, you're going to ask me, or you're going to see whether the 10 schools were built. Do we also do the budget in that form so that you can easily do a budget performance report or a budget performance analysis? I don't know, Mr. Powell.
Well, the budget performance report has several aspects to it, but one of the aspects to it is that the performance of the budget is a comparison between what you projected to receive and what you projected to spend. So expenditure is based on revenue. So the performance report, how well did you perform? Meaning that did you get the projected revenue? And if not, why not? How did the budget perform? Because you cannot make an expenditure without receiving the revenue. So how did it perform? That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of which you just alluded to is yes, you budgeted X number of dollars to do a certain project. The budget performance report that from your viewpoint is how did you deliver on the expenditure item that you have set aside. So there are two aspects to it. Comparing your projected revenue, how well did you do? Comparing your projected revenue to your expenditure, and of course, what are the projects that you succeed, and if not, why not?
Right. And on that why not, and Gabriel, you spoke about variance earlier.
Yep.
Do you get penalized if after the budget performance report and you don't meet your benchmarks, or is that a threshold? What do people do? Or is the public or citizen pressure group, are we informed enough to say, well, based on this man is having too many shortfalls, or you said we were going to get 300 million, and consistently for 2-3 budget cycles you are not even 50% there. So this is what we're going to do to you, or we're going to penalize you, or this is how we're going to evaluate you. Are we there yet to kind of evaluate those kind of things?
So, and that's when I say I have a big problem with the budget, not so much about, we're not spending the money on the things that we're supposed to spend it on, but so much in terms of the average person being able to understand those things. So first, I talked about the variance. Second of all, you look at performances. I think somebody, Mr. Powell, alluded to that. So we have a lot of state-owned enterprises that, literally, some of them serve as what we call profit centers. So that means they bring in money, and there are some that are liability to the government, right? How do you assess those things? You can't keep pouring money into a sector, into a state-owned enterprise that is consistently bleeding money, like LEC, right? So you're supposed to assess that. So let's say if you look at the budget from the LEC, it's like if you want to look at it from a line item, right? You said this is how much we're projecting this year. This is how much you expect them to project next year, right? If you in the budget itself, there's supposed to be a variance. There's a line item supposed to be a variance. So there's supposed to be projection, actual meaning how much you actually made or spent, And the next column to that is supposed to be a variance. Whether that variance is positive or negative, that gives you the ability to now assess. Say, okay, this state-owned enterprise has been, I think you alluded to that, has been posting a negative variance for the last three budget cycles, right? Let's take a deeper look at that and see what is the problem with that, right? Or let's say you look at this other revenues line item to say there's been a variance here. How do we increase this variance? How do we make it positive, or how do we grow it? Or how do we take it from a positive from a negative to a positive number? You don't see those basic details in the budget itself, right? So as I said, it becomes challenging for the average person to read it and understand it, right?
But
And
Gabriel,
when
are
you
we
look at it,
asking? Are we asking for those things?
we're
You
not.
know,
That's what I'm saying. We're not asking for them. So that's why when the budget
Good
come out,
point.
every one of us just focus on the revenue, the expenditure, the debt, but we're not looking at the basic explanation for how the people to interpret it. You and I here can understand it, right? But what happens if I take it to Maryland County for the average person to look at it, right? How do you explain that, right? And just because you and I can understand it, that doesn't mean the average librarian can understand the budget, right? Even if you can understand it, if you can't, you cannot improve what you can measure. If you're not measuring, you won't be able to improve it. So we're not asking for those things. And that's what I said. That whole budget law needs to be revised in terms of if there's a percentage that is over 5%, put a footnote as to why that increase happened. And if there's a state-owned enterprise that is not doing well, 3, 4, 5 budget cycle, you take a deeper dive at it. If that means changing the managing director for that place, then so be it. Because you need to do that in order to not just grow the budget, but to have enough money coming in to be able to spend on the basic services. Yeah.
Mr. Powell, you want to say something because we kind of concluding now.
I want to comment,
Yeah,
Dennis.
okay, but let me just interject one second. There's a difference between asking and demanding. I guess we don't we should begin to put emphasis on demanding and not asking, because of asking in Liberia is just a lackadaisical a manner of going through the motion. But do we demand? Do we have a right to demand? Because we do not demand is why we don't get reports. And nobody comes to defend a report, because the report is actually to give us an understanding of why the performance is plus or negative or positive. And if it's
Exactly.
negative, to give us
Yep.
a chance to try to correct those negatives. And if
Exactly.
it's a positive, then give us a chance to perhaps to maybe identify new areas of expenditure. So
Exactly.
nobody demands that report. So I don't even think that report ever comes up. I'm sorry, but I'm a real.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif, and then Mr. Jackson.
Yeah. I think I always say this. The Liberian economy is as simplistic, picturesque of a complicated reality. Everything we are looking at things in the perfect world sense. But you are dealing with an economy where a lot of basic things are missing. For example, you were talking about spending money into the SOE, the state-owned enterprises, instead of actually expecting revenue generation from those institutions. Let me talk about water and sewer, for example. Water and sewer and LEC, those were viable institutions. I'm sure all of you sitting here remember those were all viable institutions that actually contributed to the revenue generation in Liberia. Now, if you look at water and sewer today, or LEC, for example, even the cars that are used by water and sewer today are using what? Government license plate, because it is actually bought by the Ministry of Finance. Those institutions all broke down after the war. Those institutions were all broken down. Now, if you look at the revenue, I thought somebody was going to pick up on it, but there is a part where it says CSLG, the government is paying $46 million. What is that money for? $46 million for the what? The West African Power Pool. That is the amount of electricity that is coming from Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Ghana, which and now there is going to be another part that will also come from Guinea. That every one of these countries will actually be logged into. Now, for my brother from Cape Town, if you drove from Bow side today, you will have electricity in almost all the towns that are on the Kota Road, on the Cape Town Highway, coming all the way into Bummy Highway, but it has not reached Broadville, for example. So what happened? The people in Broadville recently said, hey, we are going to block the road because everybody else is getting electricity but us, because they are not yet in that area. These are areas that the government is really concentrating on. But if you look at $46 million that government is spending in investing into those kinds of ventures, is to actually make life in Liberia better than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. So there are a lot of good things that are happening, and these are the places that the money is going. So if LEC or water and sewer, for example, is not generating any revenue because everything was broken down. They cannot even pump water to sustain Central Monrovia, you know. So these are
Are
real
you saying
problems. How
so,
do you
so
go
we
and
can,
sustain
Mr. Cherry,
all
let
of
me
it?
interject. Are you suggesting we can hold them accountable because they're broken down, or it shouldn't be actually reflected in what we are assessing?
No, it is all reflected there. If you look at the budget, you will see that $46 million went towards what? Something called CSLG. CSLG, as I just explained, if you drive from, say, Nimba County, anywhere from Nimba County on the main road,
So that is
coming all
replacing LEC now. Is that the point?
no, the point is not to replace LEC. There is still Liberia Electricity Corporation here. But in order to log into the power grid of other countries, you have to pay them. So if you're sharing power with other countries, the amount of power that is being consumed here has to also be paid for. And
So
to also establish those infrastructures, those are things that has to be paid for by who? By the host country or by the consuming country, i.e. Liberia. So in
right.
order to build all those power stations that are around the country, I think there are about 6 of them that they built around the country. All of those things have to be paid for. So if you look in the budget, that you will see those kinds of things. So there are a lot of things that you see in the budget. If the ordinary eye look at CSLG, they may not understand what it is, but that's basically paying for the power that is coming. Even up to today's day, power in Liberia is very expensive because we destroy everything that we had.
So,
Thank you.
and that is let me just interject here real quick. And that is that I think the point that I was making here is that I understand that, but for how long do you keep investing in this thing and you don't see a return? So, for how long does the LEC, Liberia Electrical Corporation, becomes a liability, or for how long do you invest in it until you say, okay, now it's become a profit center where yes, we collect enough revenue from this entity because we have a lot of houses connected to be able to pay back this 46 million or whatever it is to this the power pool every year. So
You are you
I
asking me?
I that was part of my
Yeah.
question. I understand that we're investing in that, but how do you make sure now that you electrify enough homes so this LEC corporation doesn't continue to become a liability on the government budget every year, that it become a profit center instead of a constant liability like you're trying to allude to here? That's the
Thank you.
question that I'm trying to
Well,
get to. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry. Let's keep that as a rhetorical
okay,
question for now. Let me go to
okay,
Mr.
all right.
Jackson
Yeah,
so that we can
yeah,
conclude. We don't want to exceed 2 hours here. Mr. Jackson, you have
yeah,
any contribution? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I just want to see public financial management as it relates to the Liberian budget, so we can be able to ready put a dent to poverty in our socio-economic programs. Because as it looks now, most of the budget is basically being spent on line ministries. But that I mean people up in the government, but the people walking the streets Monrovia and the various cities. They're not being touched by what is being calculated as a budget in Liberia, and which makes it very, very difficult because all these funds coming in to the budget, some of this money could be freed out to develop our educational system. LU right there need to be elevated. We need to elevate Cottonton, the Tubman College in Maryland, all these places. All this funding has to come from the national financial instrument, which is the budget country. If we don't focus on that and we continue to put numbers in that only benefit bureaucrats, then I think the country will continue to lag behind other countries in the world. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And gentlemen, thank you so much for. Let me see if I can have colors. We have no colors. No colors for now. Let's read a few comments and then we can draw down the curtains for the night. This Jimmy Eastman said, if we want to expose where the issue is, let's look at where most of the government revenue is generated from. Economic diversification is required if government is going to generate growth. That's from Jimmy. Darling, what we say the donors should stop giving money to Liberia. You want an embargo? They distribute the money amongst themselves with absolutely nothing to show. Jimmy said the budget is intentionally vague and ambiguous because it provides legal loopholes to steal.
That is my point that
and that makes sense. Darling said the budget is something that even a state builder should be able to read. But no, Samuel Tuer budget is a myth. You will need a voodoo man to explain corruption in plain sight. And Jimmy always said, Dylan talk about the atomized budget. So those are a few of your comments here. Friendly is saying hi there. This is on LinkedIn as well. So this LinkedIn user say absolutely no need for comparison to the USA. Liberia do not print money yet, continue to be the US dollar. Great point. And yeah, all right. So those are a few of the comments. We can go around the room now, respond to those comments, and give your closing comments as within the next 10 minutes that we can close. Mr. Jackson, let me start with you. Your closing.
Yeah, my closing comment is, as I said in my last statement, I will want to see a budget in Liberia that can put a dent on poverty because, the country receives a lot of money and they generate a lot of money from the revenue side. And I think the wage bill inject takes a huge percentage of the money. So as a result, we can see money being spent on social programs because social program is very important to eliminate poverty in the country. We can have all this money coming in, and it's not putting a dent in poverty or improving our educational system. And I think one of the things too, we need fiscal responsibility. We can't have people driving for the $8,000 car in a country that is rated among the 10 poorest. We have to be fiscally responsible. Money is pouring in the country and the country is developing economically, then you can rob for the $8,000 car. You see, China, those people used to rob bikes way back 40, 50 years ago. Today, they're riding Lamborghini and all the expensive cars in the world because they save their money. So we have to get to that point where we stop fooling the Liberian people through the budget and really get to fiscal responsibility that will be able to meet our major social and economic priorities in the country. That's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. This evening at 7 p.m., join us for the Liberia History Channel. Our series on the presidents continues, and tonight we're going to be talking about Daniel E. Howard. You don't want to miss it. Mr. Powell, thank you so much for coming. Let's get your parting comments, sir.
Well, first of all, let me express, first of all, my thanks to you for allowing me an opportunity to express a few words here. But I have to let you all know that I did not come ready for this program. Because what happened is that we lost communication in how to get set up here and what have you. But hopefully that as time goes on and I'm given the opportunity to come back, I'm sure I have a lot to impart with you because I do come with a lot of experience about government financial management, especially the Liberian government financial management. If as you can see, I'm an older person, but I love having discussion with the young generation. I am one of those who believe that it is your time, such that if I am to vote this year, I'm not going to vote for anybody to be person who is more than 60 years old. I thank you for being here. I love the young people. I think you all are smart. I think you all are ready to take this country over, and that is my thrust and that is my drive. I hope I can make my communication better when I come back the next time, if I do come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Definitely, we want you back here as much as you can, your time can permit. Mr. Sharif, your closing, sir.
Oh my God. Uh, my closing statement, I just want to say something that has to do with something, one of the previous comments. There is a mistake that we sometimes make in every economy. Money is printed. Whether you print it yourself or you pay for the services of printing, you are still providing currency for your own economy. Whether you have the technology and the machinery to do it or not, it is still being done. Now, the way it is being managed, that's a different thing. So in Liberia, if you pay $25 million to print currency, you are still printing currency. Debt can be stuck in different ways, but the one thing I can say, I am very hopeful for Liberia. I think Liberia has really come a long way. I did not see the war in Liberia, but from what I see, it was horrific. In fact, I started visiting Liberia when the war was still ongoing and the basic infrastructures were all broken down. Madam Salif tried, but it was not enough. And this government is doing everything it can to put all of the pieces together. When we all grew up in this town, everywhere you went, be it Somalia Drive or across the bridge or the Gabriel Tucker Bridge, everywhere was lit up at night. Of course, that became something of the past a year ago. But today, you can once again see that the streets in Monrovia are beginning to lit up. And that is the hope for which we all pray. And I see Liberia coming on very, very strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Yeah. First, I would like to thank the panelists, Mr. Sharif, Mr. Powell, and Emmanuel Jackson. Thank you guys for coming. I think this was a somewhat good discussion, but I think for me, we didn't dive deep into the meats and bounds of the budget itself and how it impacts the everyday Liberian. The comment that I want to close with is that exactly I think I've been reiterating on this show is that in as much that we put out this budget, you and I on this show can read it and understand it and make sense of it, right? The average Liberian cannot, right? In major organizations, whatever you want to name, or countries, they do a budget the way budget's supposed to be done. You state your projection, you state your actual, and you state the variance. So that allows anybody who's reading that budget to make sense of it. So, oh, they did well in this area, they didn't do well in this area. They did well in this spot, they didn't do well here. So that way it gives them the ability to get a grasp of what is happening. But you just come and throw numbers on papers that people like Dennis and myself have to go there and take them and plug them in Excel and then run basic arithmetics to try to figure it out. It doesn't bode well for the average citizen to understand. For even most people like you and I, and this is why we come with lots of questions in an actual budget, you will see footnotes. For those of you who did accounting, you will see, for you read a statement, you will see footnotes that explain certain things that they don't cover in the numbers. We don't have that, and the budget in itself, in its entirety, it does not. For the last 5 years, you can say that, or maybe the last administration that was there, it has not impacted the people directly. Most of the money that we make, we just spend it on one, expenses, and we spend it on bills, which is the debt that we owe. That's where most of our money goes. So we can glorify here and say we're hopeful. Hope is not a strategy. You have to be intentional about what you want to do and put your money where your mouth is. So that's what I want to leave you here. I look forward to seeing you guys here, and I think this was a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next week, Mr. Percy Harris started a discussion about the origin of money and how the economy or money business had impacted our country. So you're going to be having part 2 of that discussion. I want all of you to come back so we can talk about it, because sometimes we look at just the politics of things, but economic as being the driver, even the conflicts, the good and the bad times. Most of our issue came from concessional agreements and all these different things. So most of the things that we face with as a country have to do with money.
Yeah.
The Mokofi, the water, the Wai, Kappa, that's money. And so that's what we're going to be discussing next week. For me, I'm not, when I was growing up, again, I always say this, I was into, being a good kid, because I heard when you love money business, you're a guy, you'll be a role, you will steal. If you're a woman, you like money business, they say you will, the other one.
Yeah.
So I never liked money, but now as an adult, I love to talk about money because everything runs on money. So next week we're going to be talking about money and how it connects to our everyday life, the politics. Gabriel, you said, how the budget impacts the everyday life of the people. Most of the time people are in the street singing, and all these things. The driver is money. So let's come back, and next week we're going to be talking about, money and the connection it has with Liberia, our politics, our geography, our economy, to show everything else. Money connects to it. Even the Bible says money answers everything. Money is very important. So you don't want to miss that. Thank you again, gentlemen, for your time.
Mr. Jackson did not speak.
Excuse me?
Mr. Jackson, Dennis.
No, I just want to say, Manja Jamawe. Come on,
all right, y'all start talking about us, please.
The
man is really excited.
Yeah, Sherry, I want to ask you.
Let's talk after the show. I
want to ask you, is your I just want to ask you one question.
Let him end the show.
No, we'll go in the back, at the backstage. We'll talk about it.